welcome everybody to another exciting episode of the Team Lead Talks podcast. I am your host out of Alexandria, Virginia, Andrew Becker. On today's episode, my buddy Glen Petersen, who is the head of partnerships at Bateman Collective. Welcome to the show, Glen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to hear. We were kind of talking in the pre-show about your background, so I'm excited for you to get to share that to our audience today. So let's kind of start there, Glen. Tell us high level, and then we'll kind of dive deeper into this, but who you are, what you do at Bateman today.
Yeah. So currently I'm head of partnerships at Bateman Collective. And what that means is I actually go to 7 different mastermind events for real estate investors. I actually do go to, and that's just of the mastermind events. I go to some local ones. So I'm traveling around talking to people about marketing, getting them interested in marketing and finding solutions for them and helping them. And then I also connect with other companies, with podcasts, with mastermind groups, and go speak in front of them because of some of my past experience. And so it's all about talking about marketing, sharing marketing, getting people to learn about it. And so, so that's my role now. And you probably want to know background why I would be qualified to talk about that stuff.
Sure. Yeah. What did you do before your role at Bateman?
Yeah. So I've been in I started in traditional marketing a long time ago. I did print, I did billboards, I did what we call landing pages now. I mean, this is beginning of the internet days.
Newspapers?
Yeah.
That's the only thing. Yeah. Magazines, that kind of thing.
My dad owned a newspaper company. That's how I got into marketing back in the day.
Wow. Okay.
So,
yeah.
Of course, internet days kind of ruined my dad's newspaper company. And so, print dropped drastically. And so it was a interesting time, but I hated it. I hated traditional marketing though. And so I actually got out of it and went to sales, and I hated it because of attribution. I didn't know if what I was doing was helping these companies. And so after a while I was like, they're like, hey, I did that ad with you. I did this. And what can I get from it? I'm like, I don't know. You did business increase. And so it was a very different day. And so then about 12 years ago, I actually went at my 2 previous companies ago, I actually switched over from our sales department to our marketing department. And I got to learn, I did an internship in marketing. I got to learn like backlinks, direct mail. I got to learn tons and every type of marketing, and I fell in love with PPC. And so then I started working in their PPC area for a while. And then I left that organization and I was at a digital marketing company for over 10 years, one of the biggest in the nation for that. And so I started at the bottom and kind of worked my way up. And I did media buying myself for 6 years before. And I always kept clients. I always kept doing it to make sure I stayed on top of it. But that's strictly what I did. And then I became like a team lead. And then over time, I became the director of PPC. And so I had 22 different marketers under me. What we did, we spent $13 million a month on Google and Bing. And so, we had quite a bit of spend, and I was responsible for every dollar. If any client came back unhappy, it was on me. And so it was a big deal. And then actually through that, I had a great partnership with Google and Bing. And so after time, Google came to us and said, hey, what if we created an event for you and your clients? So with me and their help, we actually built an event where we take our clients, and I took over 50 clients to Google's headquarters, and we had their VPs, their product owners come talk to us and get us understanding how to use and it was AI then. We didn't know what it was called. I mean, AI wasn't really a thing. That was still scary 5 years ago, that terminology. But it was their algorithms. It was like how to teach their systems to be better and how to use our information to be better for them. And so that's what people care about, is like me actually going to Google and learning from those people and just like actually implementing those changes for our clients and what it's helped them succeed. And so through that, I was there for 10 years. And the funny thing is I wasn't wanting to leave, but then I saw Bateman and what Bateman does and how they look at data. And it's exactly aligned with what Google was telling me. And I was like, man, if I could find a place like this, then that's what I want. I want to be able to, because they're forward thinking and they use data to dictate everything. And so doing that actually is what brought me over to Bateman. And so I've been doing head of partnerships for almost a year now.
Very cool.
Just teaching people about it. And so,
So you've got a little bit of a background in marketing, it sounds like, is what I got from all of that.
Small amount.
Yeah, just a small, tiny amount. One thing that I want to do, because some people might not know what the acronyms are here, Glenn. Can you please define what you mean by PPC?
Yeah. Yeah. So PPC is pay per click, which is actually every type of ad you pretty much see online. And that is anytime you search those sponsored results up top, anytime you're on Facebook and it's the ads on the side, it pops up in between your things. My daughter hates it because on YouTube, she's like, Dad, is that your ad? I hate your ad. And she gets to see my
She
ad.
can go straight to you. You're probably one of the people to blame here for our
Yep.
world
Yep.
problems,
Yep,
whatnot.
yep, exactly. I'm that person who you're like, how did you get that information? And I don't have that information. Google has it, and I just know how to market towards it. And so, yeah, and even videos on YouTube. There's so many different types of PPC ads, and then another terminology that we'll probably talk about. There's two others is SEO, which is
Hmm.
search engine optimization. That's just below the sponsored results in Google, and that's getting in, showing up organically. And then third one that everybody's talking about, everybody's excited about is GEO or AIO, which GEO is generative engine optimization and AIO is AI optimization. Those are interchangeable terms. GEO is the more technical one, but that is actually showing up for AI search results. And that's something that,
Like in a chat GPT or Claude or whatever.
yep,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And getting your results in there is really
Right,
what
right.
is the best thing.
Glenn, real quick question. You mentioned your amazing background in all kinds of different marketing, from the start of newspapers and print and billboards all the way to kind of the evolution of today's world to AI. When you were working in that prior company, what industry was that? Was it just sales in general, or real estate specific? Like who were your 50, 80 clients that you mentioned?
Yeah, and we actually had hundreds of clients.
Okay.
I only took like our top clients to Google's headquarters, and that's
Gotcha.
the
Okay.
50 that I took over there. So we had hundreds, and the funny thing is, it was across almost every industry. At one point, I actually was running girls' clothing, dance clothing company that spent like $4,000 a month on Facebook, and then at the same time, I was spending $160,000 with Matterport, who's in the real estate industry, and so
The photography company?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So it was
Oh,
kind
wow.
of like crossing across the board, and so that's one of the things that brought me to Bateman is I hated being so widely spread that like it was such different strategies, and so
Yeah.
yeah, it was all over the board though, and so we had a couple real estate investors who were my team ran, and so I understood the industry a little bit, but nothing to the level that I've grown and learned from now.
Right. All right. So let's transition to this now. So Bateman is realist. You went from this big world of kind of every single industry imaginable, and I think that the first one that you mentioned, you are responsible for your daughter's ads that are annoying her, since you had that part. But you like the aspect of real estate. Now you're kind of doing full time, right? Like just the industry of real estate and not all this other noise. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about, what products that you offer, how you approach it. Can you give us, the high level here?
Yeah. Yeah. So Bateman has around 200 clients in the real estate investment industry. And so most of them are wholesale and fixer flippers. We have a couple land, or we have some land, we have some
You work with
multifamily.
agents like the traditional agent, or just investors?
No, just investors. And
Okay.
yeah, that is a different side of things is when you do get into the retail side. And it's just because we are good at finding people wanting to sell their home off market pretty much. And so that's what we do focus on. And the funny thing is, some of our clients who do both actually love it because they can offer any solution to anyone who
The
does.
pivot. Yeah. I can buy your house or I can list your house.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, yeah, we focus strictly on that, and we focus on terms that actually are really dialed in towards off-market leads, people who are trying to quickly sell their home, and that's really what is the benefit of PPC. Is it's the fastest response. People are right searching right then those terms that are very high emotions, and so
Yeah. Glenn, give us like a scenario, paint a picture, if you will, for us, for those that are maybe new to PPC, just learned it's pay per click kind of thing, but you mentioned terms. I'm assuming keywords like people search. Can you walk us through like an everyday, who's sitting down at the computer? What are they doing at the computer? And then how does this all tie in together so an end customer, I guess, will get that person's information and work that lead. Can you kind of walk us through the A to Z here?
Yeah, for sure. There's many different ways, but the number one way that we do, and actually that is we've found as the top way, is actually what is search terms and keywords. And so what that means is when somebody is going through a time, they sit down on Google and they start, or any type of search engine, and they start searching, hey, I need to sell this home fast. I'm going into probate. I'm pre-foreclosure. They don't say pre-foreclosure. They say I'm going into foreclosure. Those type of things, when they actually start searching that stuff, Google identifies them as different audiences. We actually have narrowed down through millions of dollars of spend what are the best terms that actually do normally create contracts, create deals for our real estate investors. And so we actually go and say, okay, this person searched this, and eventually somebody did sign them up to, or seal the deal to get a contract out of them for an investment type of contract. And so we see what they search. We actually then go target those searches. So anytime somebody does search specific, and we've recently actually found that foreclosure terminology actually closes at a higher rate. So the cost per contract is a lot lower. So we started focusing a lot on adding some more terms and some more people saying, hey, I'm going into foreclosure and I need to sell my home fast. And so we get our ads for our clients up in the number one spot, number two spot, up in that sponsored results section. And really what we do is we actually do make sure that it's our client's information. It's some other providers, like a PPL provider, they put in like lucybuyshomes.com, but it's not the actual company name. Then they sell that lead to whoever and they buy it.
So if I hired you, I would get Andrew Buys Homes ad put up there and I would get the leads and nobody else.
Correct. Okay. Yeah. It's never sold off to anyone else. We take your company name, your site, we're building that into there. And so you're getting the full credibility, getting the branding and branding exposure and everything.
So I'm trying to understand. Okay. So I, or someone out in the world is in some sort of a dire situation where they own a property and they need to get rid of it as soon as humanly possible. They'll go to Google. Is it just Google or is it Bing? Is it Yahoo? Like, is it anywhere or like, what do you all focus on?
So the main one, so Google's our biggest. I mean, we spend 80% of our budget, if not more, on Google. And that's just because the volume there is insanely high.
People are actually searching there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. There is so much searching happening there that like to capitalize on it, it'd be millions and $1 million a month of spend to get everybody off of there.
Yeah.
The next thing is we do Bing, and it's called Microsoft Ads now. Just people recognize it as Bing. And that's only about 17% of the search market is through there. And that's because like laptops that are not Mac normally have it loaded onto there.
Like preloaded, so they're using it by default. That's probably the only way they get people to use it, right?
For the most part.
Yeah.
There's other things like people don't like Google and Apple don't work together well. And so if you're searching on Apple, then it actually uses different search engines than Google's search engine.
Okay.
So there's other things like that. And then we also do Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram for the most part. And in these, what's happening is as the people are searching, they're showing buying signals. Google has over 400,000 buying signals for anybody searching on the internet. It's crazy. Google knows that much about you. 400,000 different data points to know if you and I are the same or very different, Andrew.
Yeah.
And so
that's crazy. So Google, let's focus on that, I guess, since you said 80%, the majority is on that. So somewhere out there goes into Google and says, I'm heading into foreclosure and I need to sell my house. And you have programmed your pay-per-click ads to say, hey, when anyone types in pre-foreclosure, sell my house fast, pop an ad.
Yep.
And then they see your ad. And what happens after that?
Yeah, so it pops up as a text ad traditionally. We do have things that follow them around that if they've been to your site before, and those are called remarketing ads. If you've been to like a clothing site, you'll see those clothing items on other sites. It's remarketing ads.
They're like following you around, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So you do that as well?
Yeah, we have those set up on some of our clients, and normally not as much because it's it's almost, they make a decision within the first day. Normally it's not like 2 weeks later they're like, okay,
Yeah.
now I'm ready to sell off this property. It's almost like they're looking right then. And so then we actually show up your ad. It's a text ad with, like, it has your logo, it has some imagery to it, and we try capitalizing as much of the space as we can, so that way we can describe so much about you, how you have great listings on Google, you actually are reviews on Google, you have great information, you have different ways that they can sell it off to you, or that you can show so much in it. And so when they click on the ad, then we actually set it up where we either use a landing page or your website. The landing page still uses your domain, so you still get a lot of credibility there, but it actually just is very geared towards converting, not a ton of information like SEO general websites are. It is more like geared towards what they searched. We actually have it where what they search dynamically comes into their ads. So it says what they searched in their ads, and then we can even have it dynamically show up on the website. So if it's a foreclosure client, it shows different stuff on that landing page than it will if it's non-foreclosure.
Very cool. And what is your definition of a conversion that you just mentioned?
That's a great question. And so when they hit your website and they fill out a form, we have multi-step forms. We do have a few things that do check it. Most clients of ours, when they come over to us, they talk about conversions, and it's a little different than our conversion. Our conversion is not the first form fill. We actually then we go and curate that data, make sure it's not listed on the MLS, make sure it is a real home, real phone number, and then we actually count that as a conversion. And so some people count just then submitting their name or their address. But what we do is we actually do wait till we know that it actually is more of a quality. And that's when it becomes a conversion item. And that's when you get it when they first fill out the first side of the form, but we actually don't count it in Google until we know that it's an actual
like a real lead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then that's when it becomes a conversion for you. And so that's when you get the information. Now, speed to lead is critical on these because they are online. They're still searching. Yeah. Your site might have given them a little information, but they're still searching. They're still looking around. So if you call them within minutes, actually, we say like under 90 seconds is ideal. Yeah. And you call them, because otherwise they could be like, oh man, I didn't get that information I needed, or my phone's not ringing yet. I'm going to go submit another lead, and they're going to have multiple people reaching out. So speed to lead from that point is critical.
Yeah. Do you find that the majority of the time, someone searching for those keywords, they're not only submitting to like your landing page, but others? Like they don't just, very rarely do they submit one and then like sit back.
Yeah. If it's the only time they don't is this, if you call them. And so, okay. Yeah.
And you stop them from continuing to fill out other people's.
Yep. Yeah. They fill in one and then they're like, okay, I'm going to get a few.
Because they're shopping around trying to get the best deal. Yeah.
How
do you all help? I'm curious, like you get them to the point where that conversion happens. You have a very systematic way of quality controlling said conversion, right? It's not just this, but it's this when we fact check it. And then like, how do you all help with the speed to lead part? Or is it just like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink and it's on the customer? How does that work?
What we actually do, this is the thing that I said set Bateman apart for, and what Google actually had been telling us that we needed to get to in my last agency, is Bateman tracks everything beyond the point of lead. While Google can only see up to the point of lead, they can see how many impressions you click, they have how many people click, all of those things. But the second it goes to lead, then it's kind of offline. It's called offline conversions. And so then what happens is we actually do track and we say, okay, how fast and we actually have a system that goes and sees how fast people are reaching out to their clients, those type of things.
Okay, so if I get a lead, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
I get a lead and I don't call it back until 28 hours later. Then I call you and say, Glenn, this lead sucks. I can't get it on the phone. You have a way to say, hey, we see that you didn't even try to reach out until more than a day later.
Sometimes. So it depends on people's CRMs. Okay. There are so many different CRMs. There are so many systems that go beyond that we can't see into. But yeah, we actually do ask those questions. We talk to our clients about that every day. We're like, hey, we need you to go into your system. If the CRM doesn't speak back to our system, then And so, which I would say is 3/4 of the people. Everybody has a unique CRM in here. It seems like, but a lot of times we actually have them self-report some of the numbers to us, unfortunately. That is a drawback. We do have CRM integrations where the CRM can feed us back that information. And that is stuff like HubSpot, Salesforce, any platform that uses Salesforce sends back to us. That actually can give us that information and we can tell them, yeah, your speed to lead is low. So unfortunately, some of it is a manual approach, but we actually ask those questions. And then we actually have all of our clients in one section where we actually can compare your stats to every, like the average user across all 200 accounts of ours. And we say, hey, your contact rate is actually extremely low. Let's dive into that. And I'll actually ask them like, hey, what is your speed to lead? And so we can see that their contact rate is low compared to others. And the thing that actually is what Google does say is we want to know how well the contact rate is. We want to know which of these became an appointment, which of these became an offer, which of these became a contract, and which all the way to the deal. And we take that information and import it into Google, because at first what happens is Google's kind of guessing. But over time, we can say, hey, this person became a deal, and it can actually learn from that and start finding people of those 400,000.
Feeding it what works versus what they think is working.
Correct. Yeah, cool. Exactly. And even your market is different than my market.
Yeah.
And so even there's times where it thinks this is a quality conversion and it's not. And then we teach it that actually, hey, in your specific area, it's actually this. And so we actually
very smart
that. And so those points beyond that, that's what we track as quality indicators to know if they're going to become a deal. And over time, our quality gets so much better because we do get to see so many more data points along the way.
Yeah, for sure. And you aggregate it across the board. Yeah, that's awesome, dude. I'm curious, like, what's the average lead cost, I guess, across the board that you're shooting for? And like, everyone kind of knows PPCs can be on the expensive side, I should say. So 2 questions here, Glenn, and then we'll kind of wrap it up here. But what can one expect to be the average range or price to get a lead? And then how much are your people spending every single month over month to, maintain this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we actually have it kind of depends on the area. But I would say our average cost per contract is anywhere from $200 to $400.
Okay.
And that's cost per those curated leads. And that's make sure. And we have some clients who are in the $80 range. And we have a client in LA who's ecstatic about his $800 cost per lead. And it's because he knows quality is beyond that. We also look at cost per contract, and cost per contract is another indicator that you probably want to know about. And we say cost per contract is around 35 to 5,500, depends on area, depends on a lot of things in there. But that's actually another metric that we look at. And then people are spending, PPC is expensive. You are right. And so it is it depends on the area, it depends on the market, on how big the market is. But I would say our average client is spending about $10,000 to $12,000 with us. Well, we have some clients who spend over $100,000. We have multiple who do. And then we have some who are spending $4,000 because their market doesn't allow them to spend too much, or that's what their budget is right now internally, their marketing budget. So so we actually do have vast ranges across it, but I would say that it depends on your numbers, on what makes sense to you. And that's something that our team does is we go sit down and say, hey, your market actually doesn't have as much availability as LA will. Yeah. And so we don't recommend you spending $15K. We recommend you spending $7K or $6K, and here's why. Mm-hmm. And then here's the expected cost per contract. Here's the expected cost per lead. And so, and our average lead to contract too is another people care about. We're about 14 to 15. And so leads to get a contract. And so when you do the math, can you afford that? Because $300 is not cheap for leads. Yeah. But if you can get it within 15, a contract within 15 leads, does that math make sense for you?
What's your average contract value when you do close one? Will that pay for it? Glenn, I'm curious, like, what do you guys say? Like, I feel like those numbers are spot on from conversations that I've had in the past with others, like 200-ish range for a lead and then a couple thousand, to a few for the contract. and then the spend totally makes sense. And for those listening that might not have picked up on what Glenn just said, Jackson, Mississippi might not have the volume that a San Francisco might have with more population. So there's a point of diminishing return if you spend the same amount of budget in Jackson, Mississippi versus a highly populated area. So that's the difference there, which makes total sense. I'm curious though, what do you say to someone or some owner operator team that we talked about, like, having the right budget, going into this with that, I'm going to spend a lot and invest a lot, and then that speed to lead. I'm curious, like, if I came to you and I'm like, I'm brand new, I'm just starting out, I don't like, what do you say to those people who are contemplating going into PPC? Because it is kind of like the big leagues, especially on the investor wholesaler side, where you're competing with people spending 15K, 100K, 50K. What's your message to them?
We actually do turn away quite a bit of those people. And it's because we say, hey, it's not ideal for you right now. Because if you don't get a lead or a contract in that first month, then you're bankrupt. And so we actually do tell those people, we say, hey, it does have a runway. It does have a ramp up period. So you do have to have almost that another lead source, other things dialed in. If they don't have their CRM dialed in, if they don't have their lead management team dialed in, we actually do turn away those people all the time and say, hey, we think you should have better processes. You need a better CRM.
You're not ready yet.
And also the budget, and you just don't have another lead source, or you don't have the backing to really last 3 months off of a 1x return. You actually need to get a deal. So go start cold calling. And we actually do refer to people to PPL or to cold calling. We just go say like, hey, you need to do your own type of stuff. If
a little bit more economical approaches before going straight into like cutthroat, approach here. So yeah. I like that. Yeah. You're helping them out, because I have seen and heard horror stories of people just aren't ready and, bankrupting or whatever it is. But Glenn, this has been really cool. I'm learning a lot about like the PPC angle. I know there's so much more we could probably have talked about, but I like to keep these episodes relatively short. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. But Glenn, if someone's interested in talking to you, learning more about you guys and what you do, how do they reach you? How do they find you?
Yeah, so you can go to batemancollective.com, or if you do want to get like a free audit, it's get.batemancollective.com/RELP. And that actually is our free audit site. And partners and podcasts that I go on, I'm like, hey, let's get you into the free audit, not just learn about Bateman, because you've just learned a little bit about us.
What's the free audit? Can you explain that a little bit? What are you auditing?
So we actually have two different approaches. We can go and look at what you've done on PPC, or let you know what it would take to get into PPC into your area. So it depends on if you're running now. We can look at what you're running, where you can improve, what things you should be doing that you're not doing. Or if you aren't running, we can say, hey, here's the kind of money investment. Here's what your market does dictate. Here's what we're seeing as your average cost per lead, cost per contract in that area. And so that way you can actually have the right expectations. And then we also do on the other side, SEO and AIO, see if your site, see if everything's up and running, see if you're showing up organically, and if you're showing up for AI searches too. And so you can get any type of audit around those type of things of you showing up online. Awesome. And then they can always, so you can either add me on Facebook or on LinkedIn, or even email me directly. And it's just gpetersen@batemancollective.com if you have more questions. But I love answering questions. I love helping people about marketing and know what to do, because it is hard. It's not a quick, easy thing. And that's why I still have a job.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. The job security is fantastic. But of course, it's very hard for some people to understand. So I'd love to share.
Man, I won't argue with you about that. If anyone is interested, you can reach out to Glenn with any of the ways you just mentioned. We will also include all of Glenn's contact information in the description of this episode. So if you're watching on YouTube, just look down with his website, his email, etc. So reach out to Glenn. He definitely knows the marketing biz. That is very apparent here. Thank you so much for your time. I did have one last question. I like to ask this of everybody, Glenn, before we kind of part ways here. But you've already shared so much. I think the audit thing is really cool. So excluding that, is there a book, a resource, or a checklist maybe in the marketing realm, since that's your world, that you can share with the listeners today that might change their life, their community, or their business for the better?
Yeah. Yeah. Brandon, our CEO, Brandon Bateman, he actually has done a lot of trainings of how to do it yourself. We actually have like, here's the ways to get your SEO going, your AIO going. And Brandon has a 5-week PPC course of just like, here's how to do it. Here's how to do it yourself. And so that way you can, and he'll go through some of those details, some of those things that we breezed over. So that way you can learn, like, you know what, I can start doing it myself before I have the budget to get
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But really, yeah, there's so much gives that Brandon has done over the years. And so, yeah, I'll get you the link for kind of the PPC playbook section, that it's all the different things about it, and even an SEO playbook too.
Very cool. I appreciate that. Our listeners appreciate that. Thank you so much for your time, man.
Yeah, no problem. I'm excited. Thanks again.
All right, man. Stick around for a sec right after this, but thanks again for being on.
Okay. Yeah.
Bye.
See ya.